that's where he's going, in my mind. I think that's what they're trying to convey.
But they don't know where the camp is.
Yes. And so I think what the writer was trying to say, which I think this is kind of a criticism of the screenplay a little bit, is, kind of contrived, or it doesn't make sense, right? So I think what the screenwriter was thinking was like, so they're going to assume that he's going back to the Sioux, and they're wanting to take over the whole land, so they're wanting to get rid of the Sioux, and so they're going to go after the Sioux, and they're going to thus also go after Dunbar, and the Pawnee Scouts would lead them to the Sioux, and thus to Dunbar.
Well, there's another problem with this idea.
That's I think what they're trying to convey.
There's another problem with it, and he literally says this in the sentence before he says I have to go. He says, I'm a traitor now, and they will hunt me down, and they will kill me, and they want to kill me.
He said that. He said specifically, they will hate me like no other.
They will hate me like no other. And then in the next sentence, he's like, but I'm just going to go right back. And that doesn't make any sense because the way
I will say that line was
the way he's laying it out. It makes it sound like he's just going back to get hung.
That line does not make
any
sense. That's the one that bothers me more than the whole idea of how they would track him down.
Right?
Because they would want to kill him. They want to get him. They don't want to just let the traitor.
And then his wife goes with him. So what are you gonna do? Just bring your wife to watch your execution?
Yeah. Fun fact: there is actually the novelist wrote and the screenwriter wrote a sequel novel to this called The Holy Road, which they never made it into a movie. There was discussions with Costner about making it, but they never did. And so I guess it picks up with their story.
That's so cool. I wonder what happened.
Yeah, so I mean that would be interesting.
Yeah. Well, any other nitpicks, y'all?
I have Mr. West. That was kind of your nitpick, kind of as well.
The only other thing I would say is
the hair.
We gotta talk about. You gotta get this spiel about the hair.
You gotta tell us about the hair.
I was gonna say too, the hair, and then there's no way that he's gonna ride in front of a Confederate division at the beginning.
That was
and not get shot.
Well, let's start with the hair.
Yeah,
tell us how much you hate that. Like, the audience doesn't know what you're talking about. What happened?
Yeah. Well, it's it just looks like he has a giant mullet. And it just pops out and it's a huge mullet. And I don't know what they could have done. Put it in braids or cut it.
It looked better when he had the mustache. Yeah. When he took away the mustache, it really looked odd.
Or if they could just give him a hat or something. Yeah. I don't know. You couldn't.
He loses his hat. He loses his hat.
Next to his wife, they said the same silhouette. I don't know. It threw me off.
Hey, but he loses his hat in the bet, remember? Or in the trade.
His hair is terrible, and I feel like it's so.
What about the girl's hair?
It's so funny. He cuts his mustache right as the love arc begins to start, and I feel like Costner was like, "I gotta get ready for some kissing, man. I gotta lose this stash so I can do some smooching."
What about the girl's hair too? It's just like you said she looks like a cave woman.
She looks like a cave woman, but I mean, I guess if you live on the prairie,
you're not cutting your hair.
You don't have any shampoo.
She could turn around and squat down, and she'd look like a sagebrush. And
then, all right, here's the nitpick. The love scene. We were fast forwarding that thing for a while, man.
It wasn't as long as the one in Alexander, though.
Oh yeah, that one was long.
That one was like 10 minutes.
That was
long.
probably like a couple minutes, but yeah.
Dude, you kept skipping, and it kept.
I know, yeah. It was like 10-second skips, and it took like 5 of them or something. But anyway, one of my nitpicks would be that part of the movie. So overall, the movie is kind of slow, but it doesn't hurt the movie for the most part because it's so immersive.
Right.
So it's not a negative in and of itself, but that part of the movie. All right, so I'll set this up. So it's the part when the Lakota send their war tribe to go out and fight the Pawnee or whatever, and he stays back to help defend them and all. And that's when kind of like the love story kind of starts and everything. That part of the movie leading up to the battle with the Pawnee when they invade the camp,
right? That
part of the movie is my least favorite part of the movie, just because it feels very slow, and it's just them talking, and their relationship is fine and all. It's good. The acting is good and everything. The dialogue is good, but it just feels. That part felt slow. The rest of it didn't feel slow because it was just you're so immersed. That part of it was my least favorite part of the movie. It's like a 20-minute segment of the movie, so it's not even that much. That part felt a little slow.
And I think in the movie scene or the movie version they cut a lot of that out.
Which
it was. I see what you're saying. I hadn't thought of that.
So,
and
that's when the love scene is, and it's just whatever.
I'm gonna bring something up. I'm sure y'all are gonna want to comment on this,
of my nitpicks.
But there's some strange things that go on with the first scene in the beginning of the movie.
Other than the fact that he doesn't get shot by about 100 Confederates. Did we get that across here?
So for context, what happens is Costner in the beginning of the movie has been shot in the leg, and the surgeons are saying they're going to have to take off the leg. So I guess that's just too much for him. He'd rather not live at all than not have his leg, I guess. And so he gets on this horse and literally goes like this, and is riding in front of an entire Confederate line while they all open fire simultaneously.
Like, I'm gonna get him.
And every single person misses. I think 100 people shoot at him, and it's just like...
That was very contrived, kind of Hollywood,
It was like, what on earth? But I actually had further problems with this scene, because he ends up getting found by the general, and he sees his wound on his leg, and he's like, please... don't take my leg, and he's like so thankful because he saved the assault that he's like, don't worry son, I'll save your leg, I'll get my special surgeon. And like that whole idea totally messed with me, because like you're telling me that they had the capability to save these people's limbs, but like one special doctor knows how to do it but the rest of them don't. That makes no sense. Like,
yeah, that was true. That's
he's like, it implied he's like, oh, my special surgeon knows
it as a personal surgeon.
Right, but like you get what I'm saying. Like for some reason his surgeon can do it and all the others can't. Like they can't comprehend, take out bullet, apply antibiotic.
It's like a time thing, though. They were just the factory line getting the soldiers in and out.
That still doesn't make any sense, because how much more time is it going to cost the army for them to not like take care of people with no legs and no arms? I mean, like that didn't make any sense to me.
Another nitpick for me is at the beginning. Well, here's a little nitpick. And this isn't really that big at all. The whole plot of the movie is kind of contrived a little bit. Just the whole story arc of the guy goes off, he becomes friends with who he thinks is his enemy, and then ends up fighting against the people that he was formerly fighting with. That whole plot arc or plot story or plot convention is pretty commonly used, and that is what this movie is. That takes nothing away from how good the movie is, but it is a bit contrived.
This movie kind of like pioneered it in the modern sense.
Yeah, there have definitely been movies before
But here's
this,
the thing, John. I actually agree with you about the contrived, but it's like actually on different points.
Okay, yeah.
Like for example, the leg thing, and he never limps, which I thought was so ridiculous.
That was we don't know how much time has passed between.
But still, the leg was about to come off.
Yeah,
and then he just does it.
That is a good point, actually.
Like
continuity error.
I mean, like what the heck? And then the dude who's like crazy, the crazy general that he meets out,
kills himself.
It's like, how did he get appointed to that position?
Well, honestly, I like your explanation for that. Yeah. He probably was a perfectly good general or whatever, and he probably went. Obviously he's crazy. Yeah. And because of the isolation, so I don't. A lot of
people don't like to be alone.
I know, yeah.
So it just.
I got that part.
Dude, speaking of crazy Civil War generals, I looked into General Pickett in what's called the Pig War. If you look that up. That's wild.
We're talking about up on the island between Canada and U.S.
Yes, the stuff that Pickett did
during the Civil War.
Yes,
wait, what?
Yeah, before the Civil War against the British. It's wild, bro.
Why does that relate to this?
It doesn't. It doesn't. It doesn't at all. It doesn't at all.
Yeah.
But
there are some contrivances for
just a little bit, with the leg, and then also the last thing that was kind of a contrivance is like. They were sitting there in a stalemate in the battle for like however long, and like the fact that he like made a few of the Confederates like look one way for 1 second, and then all of a sudden the Union just like floods up and takes the hill. And
that's my least. It's probably not the most like accurate depiction of Civil War battles.
Well, it's like how did that like affect the battle?
I think it's just trying to get him to the prairie. That whole deal.
Sure it is.
No, I think it works thematically because he's this guy who thinks that he wants to die, but it's like he can't die because he has a higher purpose. So he like still has a purpose in life.
I think it's 1864 or something.
Yeah, 3 is the battle.
Okay, so he's been in the war for 2 years. He's probably had it. He's probably seen all kinds of stuff. He's just fed up. He's done. He's ready to end it, and then
But I think the fact that he doesn't die there is supposed to allude to the fact that he has still a purpose in life. Which obviously carries out the rest of the movie. Right. And my final little nitpick will be the movie takes a second to I think it really starts to get the first like 20 minutes, which includes this stuff, is not my favorite part of the movie. I think it takes a minute to get going. Once he meets Timmons and starts going out to the place, that's to me when it really gets good. So the first 20 or so minutes aren't the highlight of the movie.
Except
really,
the battle is good.
To me, the battle's fine, but just like there's just a lot of contrivances in those first 20 minutes for sure. Yeah, and so I think it really gets going once he meets Timmons, which Timmons, as we said, is a hilarious. Put that in your book.
All right, y'all want to slide into themes real quick?
Sure, themes. Yep.
So themes, I wanted to draw
themes of the movie.
I want to draw a parallel between this movie and The Last Samurai because these are very two similar films in more ways than you would expect. Because like it starts with both characters trying to commit suicide, and then having to have this rebirth experience through this like multicultural bonding with another culture.
Yeah. I guess the guy in The Last Samurai tries to commit suicide.
He's like,
does he?
I thought he did.
No, I don't think he does.
Does that never happen?
I mean, he like kind of wants to die almost. Like I guess in that sense.
I mean, there is an apathy towards life.
That
is shared between them.
Yeah, that's right.
And then they both served in the army before, and they both. And the funny thing about it that ties into this is that the reason that Tom Cruise's character in that movie goes
Nathan
to Japan, Nathan Algren, is because he actually was in the same time frame.
He was fighting for the Union.
Union.
That are the bad guys in this movie.
Like I feel like it overlaps so well that he might as well have like been a part of that war party that went out to the fort, because he has these flashbacks where he killed like these Indians.
At the beginning of that movie.
In a very like war crime fashion, and that's the reason. So it's like a cool overlap. It's like a inception of movie plots going on there.
Yeah, for sure. But, no, I really enjoyed that part.
Yeah.
I enjoyed that connection.
Yeah.
So, but what's like that theme of like apathy toward life and having a higher purpose? I was kind of
trying to just doing compare and contrast there, but for my theme, I think a cool theme that runs through this movie is like solitude and then bonding. Because it contrasts these two themes because he spends so much time alone, and then another theme of the movie is how he gets to know these people who are so different from him. So like the value of solitude contrasted against the value of genuine friendship is something that is these are themes that are played with throughout the movie, I think.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I would say that it's a need for connection that we all have, and even though you think hey, I want to get away from everything, which we all do. When it comes down to it, after a few days, you're like, I need some connection.
Yeah,
I need connection. And he finds it in those friends.
Yeah,
not just in the he finds it in
the wolf.
The wolf, his horse. You see, he actually talks about. There's a scene in there where he talks about he's getting lonely and it's raining for like 3 days.
Yeah.
And he walks out in the rain and he spends that moment with Cisco. He just needs that moment of connection. So
and then you have but then what's sad? The sad part of the thing is both of these animals get killed eventually, and it's like that friendship dying. But then obviously he has the friends, the sentient friends that obviously he can rescue him, and so he feels like it's almost like all of his friends are getting killed, and then he gets rescued by his other friends. It's really cool.
Yeah, but I think that the movie actually isn't hating on the idea of being lonely. I think because he's content while he's by himself, and I feel like he needs that cleansing period to get everything from the war out of his system. So I think the movie is actually commenting that solitude is actually a good thing, but that friendship is also a good thing, and that they need to be taken in their proper quantities.
Yeah, I'm gonna grab that charger in there real quick.
Go for it. Dad, do you have a theme that you want to comment on?
Well, I guess I just agree with that. I think it's about the right connection, finding the right connections. Something that's he couldn't find back east and was hollow and meaningless. So he went and searched. Just said forget it. But in the process, he finds a deep connection with these people in the land. In the land. So
I think that's the computer charger. Yeah, that is the computer charger. Okay. Is there any more deep ideas that you think this movie grapples with?
I'd have to think about that, Nate.
I don't know. I guess a good question is what aspects of the movie stir your soul?
Well, so what stirs my soul, I think, in that movie.
Yeah, what makes this one of your favorite movies?
It is a period in history where you're going. There's almost a loss of. I don't want to say loss of innocence, but there is it's right before the great expansion out west, and so there's a passing of into a new era.
Yeah, it's at the brink of a new era.
It's that you see it when he takes him to the edge of the Rockies at the end, and I think this part is only in the extended cut. But he says even our enemies find this place to be
agreeable or to be sacred.
And then he finds it being desecrated by the white man. And so it's just it's a transition period. It's passing into history.
Yeah.
And even Kevin Costner says, because I want to see the frontier before it's gone.
Yeah, literally.
And so I just find that having seen the Dakotas and the Rocky Mountains, and just it's a special place to imagine that before any kind of development is just a dream.
Yeah.
So. Yeah, that's what I love about it.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Yeah. And
John, what's your theme?
So my theme, mine kind of derives from this. This is kind of like the tagline that was on the movie poster. It says, Lieutenant John Dunbar is about to discover the frontier within himself. So that was kind of the tagline of the movie. And he kind of goes with what you were just saying. Like, he wants to go see the frontier. But, like, really, it's almost like he's going to the frontier of, like, his life, kind of. Like, he's going out, he's exploring new things, and he obviously has all these life-changing experiences. So that's the biggest theme to me that comes across. And this kind of envelops the themes that you were talking about of, like, friendship and, like, how, we need, like, connections while also needing isolation at times. I think a really good scene that illustrates that is when he sleeps away from the camp after they've killed the white guys that took the pelts or whatever, or not the pelts, but the buffalo skins, because he has to kind of just have his time alone. I just thought that was a good scene that illustrates that. Like, he needs to be alone at that moment. But anyway, the whole biggest thing to me is, like, just finding yourself, like how he, like, discovers himself. And he literally has that line of dialogue where he says, I don't think I ever knew who John Dunbar was before this moment or before this part of my life.
Perhaps the name has no meaning at all.
Yeah, I know. So I think a big theme of this movie is just this John Dunbar just discovering himself through his, and it all happens obviously through his interactions with the Lakota and just through these new experiences and, by bonding with people that he never would have thought he would have been able to bond with.
Excellent.
So, yeah.
So how about we wrap it up with talking about the history a little bit?
Yeah, because there's some interesting things
And the first thing I'd like to get into about this is me and my dad have done, you all know this if you've watched the channel. If you're the one person who's watched the channel, that we do Civil War reenactments. I brought the props on all the time, when we did Civil War movies. But that's relevant because there's a Civil War battle. It was in that same time period. So having had those experiences on the quote-unquote battlefield, do you have any comments on the historical accuracy or lack thereof?
Yeah, no, I mean, everything I saw looked period accurate. I did notice even just in the Indian camps how real that looked. And, how a lot of their tools and just their simplicity of their shelters and stuff, and the Civil War part looked real to me. So I mean, I think they put a lot of effort into the accuracy of that.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, I think they use that goes with the production design. I think they really tried to get a lot of it kind of accurate.
It's funny because my experiences with reenacting made me relate to this movie so much more.
Yeah,
because I've woke up in those pants with those overalls on before,
like sleeping. The guy was sleeping next to the Timmons and
he woke up next to that cart, in that clothes, and he got up, and it's funny because I just know exactly how that feels.
Yeah. And you realize the comfort, like they made, just the fire is like your TV, it's your radio, it's your entertainment, just a fire.
Yeah. So it's pretty wild.
It's crazy.
And then something I wanted to mention about the history that's really cool. It's like the evolution of the firearms that they showed, because towards the beginning of the movie they were going with just the rifles.
And then he has that automatic.
Towards the middle of the movie, you see the Henry rifle, and then later on you see breech loaders with the Union Army, which is something that would have just been coming into service.
That was a Sharps rifle.
And it's so cool to see it. Although I think the pistol he was carrying might have been a Navy pistol.
Navy 1844.
Which is really interesting, seeing as how he's an infantry officer. But
well, that was what a lot of the Union and Confederates carried if you were an officer.
Okay.
Speaking of with the paraphernalia of the time and stuff, I was reading here. It says it shows him in the film wearing a gold bar on his officer shoulder straps, which would indicate that he's a first lieutenant, and that's actually very accurate. That's exactly the type of thing that the Union Army wore, was that gold bar. And then, because it says here from 1836 to 72, the rank of first lieutenant was indicated by a gold bar. After 1872, the rank was indicated by a silver bar. So they really got that time. They got that accurate to the time period. They didn't just say, it's a silver bar now. I guess it would have been a silver bar, And it says here also, another captain is correctly depicted wearing a pair of gold bars indicating the rank of captain. So they really got all the, what do they call the insignia and stuff really accurate.
Man, that's good details.
Yeah,
that's good details. I mean, I would have never noticed something like that.
Yeah,
and this is random. Can we take a moment to appreciate how good Kevin Costner's mustache was?
And he lost it, and it killed the look.
It was a tragedy.
Well, I think one positive that we didn't mention is the buffalo hunt scene. I mean, come on, the most iconic. I think is one of the more iconic scenes in the movie. I mean, come on, what a great scene. Anyway, but so I had a few things that I was just reading here.
Yeah, let's get through it.
So one historian apparently had a problem with the idea that the Pawnees were like the stereotypical villains of the time.
I mean, come on.
Because it says that like most accounts of Sioux-Pawnee relations see the Pawnees, numbering only 4,000 at the time, as the victims of the Sioux. So there was more of like a mutual, like they both kind of were afflicted by each other.
Well, let me tell you what this is because in history right now, the way that history students are taught to see the world is through this like neo-Marxist lens, which is victim and victimizer, and that's the only way that they can see it. And so that's what's coming through with that historian. He's like, oh, they're not the victim, they're the victim, and that's not what the movie's about.
I know.
And he grapples with it in it. You know, when Costner was like, we weren't fighting for any political gains. We were fighting for our food and for people who were sitting 10 feet away who would die. And so I think that's. Maybe it's true that they were outnumbered.
I think that's what the problem is there with that the historian or the historians have is that the Pawnee were actually more attacked by the Sioux than they attacked the Sioux.
What I'm saying is that I take issue with viewing it through that lens.
I would agree. Actually,
it's just in a proper historical perspective, in my opinion, that's just war between two tribes.
I think all those tribes were constantly
exactly.
I mean, it was.
And for the thematic purposes of the movie, of course, they had to pick one to be the good guys and another one to be the bad guys.
Which, by the way, it's so funny that we talk about one of the Pawnee that's kind of like the leader. In the credits, he's literally credited as toughest Pawnee.
He's like the boss battle of Pawnee.
He has like a spear thing on his freaking on his club.
You can see like his health bar show up when he goes on screen. It's like toughest Pawnee.
He's the Mohegan, or he's
the way he's in the literally he's like the stereotypical Indian villain of Hollywood. The scout that betrays him, which that's it's a scout. Let's take him prisoner. Anyway, and also Fort Hayes, which is the fort that he goes to, not the one that he ends up at in the wilderness, the first one. And in the movie, it's portrayed as kind of desolate. Not many people are there. It's kind of just this outpost that some people are there, and
it's literally like a house.
Yeah, I know. It's literally just that house that the officer guy that's crazy lives at or whatever. And in reality, it was a little bit more hustling and bustling, I guess you'd say. It was founded in 1867, and before that, there was a fort there called Fort Fletcher, and it was abandoned for a few months, and then it was relocated a short distance away.
1867.
After.
I feel like it would have been still called Fletcher when he got there.
Yeah. So they must. Yeah. Obviously, they did something with the names. They moved it up a little bit or something. But technically, the fort that would have been there when this movie takes place would have been Fort Fletcher.
Yeah.
I guess I don't know why they decided to go ahead and call it Fort Hayes, but that's just what they did.
That's a tiny blip.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. And also Fort in the movie, obviously, it implies that Fort Hayes is in Sioux territory, Sioux and Pawnee. It was actually in Cheyenne territory rather than Sioux. And like I said, it wasn't desolate. It says here there was thousands of soldiers, railroad workers, and settlers.
There's like a train.
It was like it says the Kansas Pacific Railway and the settlements of Rome and Hayes City were built next to the fort in 1867. So it was more of a bustling.
I feel like that's probably the money. That they didn't have. It's probably
and the fact that there was all this hustle and bustle. The fact that there was a lot of hustle and bustle and a lot of manufacturing stuff built there. It was the Indians there, the Cheyenne and the Arapaho, saw it as like a violation of their territory, and so they started fighting and stuff. And it says it resulted in immediate warfare with what was known as the Dog Soldiers that was led by Sheridan. and Sheridan's headquarters were actually at that Fort Hays, and that happened in 1867, 1868. And it says here also a historic seasonal Pawnee teepee village was located only a few miles from Fort Hays, but the Pawnee had been excluded from the fort by other dominant tribes. So the Pawnee were kind of like, I guess, like said, y'all got to get out of here. This is like they weren't able to, like, I guess, hang out with the white people and stuff there. But and you mentioned during the movie, Mr. Nate, that there was a real John Dunbar.
You just call him Mr. Nate.
Oh my gosh, no! How could I disgrace him? Actually, Mr. West, that there was a real John Dunbar.
Yeah.
So I didn't know. What did you know of? What did you?
I vaguely remember something about him being like a missionary.
Yeah, I know. That's what it says here. It says he was a Christian missionary. However, he worked with the Pawnee specifically in the 1830s and 1840s. So a few 20 years before. And it says that he sided with the Native Americans in a dispute with government farmers and a local Indian agent. So he was a guy who kind of forged relationships with the Indians. And but according to the screenwriter Dunbar, the character in the movie, his name was literally chosen at random from lists of Civil War veterans. It was just a coincidence. So it wasn't actually a reference to the real historical John Dunbar. But that is weird that the real Dunbar did have relations with the Indians and stuff.
That is really interesting.
Yeah, I know. And then the last thing is that Stands with a Fist is actually also inspired very loosely by a real person named Cynthia Ann Parker, who was a white girl that was captured by Comanches. So yeah.
Oh, that's cool.
She was, and so yeah, that actually was inspired in a loose way.
All right. Well, do we have final thoughts on this movie?
You want to go? Or,
yeah, you go first.
Yeah, you have to give your message to the director.
Right, message.
Well, he does a message to the director. You go first.
Yeah.
So, like, final thoughts and what your rating 1 to 10 would be.
My all-time favorite movie has been for 20 years. Give it a 10 out of 10. Great movie, just all the way around.
There you go.
Excellent. So my message to the director,
Kevin Costner. Just calling him by his last
Costner.
name. What's up, Costner?
Or I'll go with Kevin. Kevin. I don't like you that much, but your directing in this movie is just undeniably
Should he have won Best Director?
Yes. The directing in this movie, somehow you managed to direct yourself. That's really cool. I'm a fan of that. 9 out of 10 movie. It's an S tier movie. There's some I like better, but that's only because of personal taste.
Yeah. You know what's fun is that only a few years later, Mel Gibson did Braveheart and he directed himself in that. They both won Best Director and they both won Best Picture.
Come on, Mel. What are we doing?
They both won Best Director and Best Picture for this movie.
Look.
Isn't that funny?
It works out well.
Yeah.
John, got a last thought?
Oh, yeah. So my final thoughts, great movie. I would give it I would give it a 9. Yeah, rewatching this movie, I liked it a lot more than I did the last time. I realized that the slow pace wasn't like a bad thing. Like that's part of the movie and part of what immerses you in the culture and stuff. So I would give this a 9 out of 10. Yeah, this is like this is a different tier here.
You should definitely watch this movie.
Yeah, it won Best Picture that year. It's a great movie. Won all kinds of awards and it just has a lot of great qualities like we've talked about. So yeah, 9 out of 10. Yep, go check it out.
Well, gentlemen.
Fun.
Let's stop talking movies.
That was fun.